I actually have a similar story to that, seeing the first episodes of Dragon Ball. Like, like you remember back in the day when they had full blown episodes of Dragon Ball on YouTube, like online. It would be like the Spanish dub, and they'd have Capítulo 63, 64, all that 65.
They had them in English and in Japanese. I remember that. The entire series was uploaded to YouTube. And then when the copyright shit started,
Back like when I saw those episodes of Goku climbing Karin Tower, like that was back in the day when you could see someone getting decapitated on YouTube. You remember those days?
I didn't see that on YouTube, but I did see it on the internet.
Like that was back when YouTube was the wild, wild west. And I have a similar story of where, like, this is how I got into the manga. I remember when I was in 4th grade, I remember we had to read these, books, like pages of a book and have it signed by our parents so we could have a Chick-fil-A party at the end of the month. But I didn't want to. I had this book. It was called Savvy. I just didn't want to read that crap. So I would go online to find Dragon Ball episodes to watch, and eventually I stumbled upon the manga online, and it was with these crappy scans and stuff. But it was around the era of the Red Ribbon Army arc, where it was Goku and Murasaki, like against Murasaki. It was that era, and I remember reading that era up to the point, just getting all my stuff signed. I was able to get the party.
Did you see the one with the weird text that was like done by fans? Because that was what was around back then.
Yeah, like it was all crappy, and the scans, it was all janky and wonky and stuff.
Yep.
Like the crazy thing about Gen 2 and Gen 3 is like how we have our own lingo, some of you have manga lingo too, but Gen 3, we got more of the Japanese terms in there, like Kamehameha instead of Kamehameha, or I don't even know if people still say that anymore.
Well, they said Kamehameha, which is more of the original King's pronunciation, and they did Kaioken. Yeah, but in the early Kai episodes, they also used the Japanese terminology and then switched back.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But didn't they use the Yamamoto score in Dragon Ball Kai when it first came to the States? Like before he got caught for plagiarism?
Yeah, he was in both. He was in. There's 4 Kai. Like if you download Kai from Seed of Might, it comes with 4 audio options. English Yamamoto, Japanese Yamamoto, English Kikuchi, Japanese Kikuchi. Yeah, there's 4. But if you have the original Blu-rays that have Yamamoto's score, those are going to be worth something one day because they don't put those out anymore. It's just Kikuchi now. So if you're out there and you have those Blu-rays or DVDs, hold on to them because they're going to go up in value. Same thing with the old Funimation VHS tapes. Even though it's old censored VHS, there's a weird collector's market out there that's looking for some of these, bro.
So you say what you want about him plagiarizing, but the music he plagiarized was awesome. Like
he's amazing, bro. I love his music. His video game music was incredible. Like I'm doing a tribute to him very soon.
Like Battle Point Unlimited is amazing.
GT Final Bout had great music.
And like now that we're into the Gen 3, we're talking on the Gen 3 topic, I got so many stories from my childhood because my brother actually got me into Dragon Ball, right? Like we started from the beginning, but I remember, around the Namek arc, that's when we started because everyone's got their own little pocket of time where they like Dragon Ball was like at its most hype. Like I remember around the Namek arc when the first time I saw Zarbon and all these other guys and they're all wearing Vegeta's armor and we thought they were a part of it. We thought they were, Saiyans like him. We thought they were just like him, and I remember my brother thinking, he was like, did you see Zarbon? He's so gay. And like, that's the one thing that I learned about the Japanese dub is that like Zarbon, Dodoria, and even Frieza, if you notice, they all look a bit effeminate. Like Frieza has women's lips, Dodoria also has women's lips, and Zarbon looks gay or like a woman, pick your guess.
Then when Frieza transformed, all of a sudden he's like got a more like, especially the 2 and 3 forms, he's meant to look scary.
But the thing I learned is that the Japanese dub is in Japan, it's like that's a way for them to get heat on them, because if they look gay in Japan, that's a way like that'll make you seem evil because Japan's more conservative than America. That's what gets heat on the villains, so your audience will hate them more if they look like that because they look a bit fruity,
especially back then. Now they've changed a lot, but back then for sure. I mean, bro, not Dragon Ball, bro. In Dragon Ball, Bulma calls General Blue the FAG word, the Japanese version of it, with no censorship or nothing. She's like, "Oh, you're up." So I covered it in one of my videos. That I did.
And Gohan called Super Buu a retard.
Yeah, well, that was in that stayed in though. Like that was in the anime too, but the anime didn't have Bulma saying that. It was only the manga, from what I remember. But the anime made General Blue a pedo, and I don't like that.
And so, you know, as the timeline moved on, you know, we got GT like on Nicktoons, because, you know, that would come in and it was still the same dub from, you know, back in the, so I don't know why they didn't have Dragon Ball on there. But you're like, do you remember episode 60 of GT? Because there's one thing when I went to go see this in Japanese that actually changed. And I made a video about this. But this is why it pisses me off when people say, oh, Vegeta didn't get any development in GT. Remember in episode 60, right before they were about to fuse, when, you know, like, Goku's chuckling, like he's laughing, and Vegeta goes, oh, why are you laughing? And then in the Japanese dub, Goku says, oh, because you were the one to recommend fusing. And then in the English dub, they changed it to, you know, Vegeta asks, he's like, oh, why are you laughing? And then Goku's like, oh, look at our sons. They're fighting together. Word for word. I'm not changing anything. He says that line to Vegeta. He says that crap.
Bro, not just that. I didn't know this until a couple years ago. I never watched this shit dubbed. In Fusion Reborn, in the Japanese version, Vegeta's like, Kakarot, I'm never fusing with you again. And in the English one, he's like, we should do that again sometime. And Goku's like, anytime you want, Vegeta. Completely fucking the opposite, bro. The opposite.
Yeah, and so like with this leap from Kai to GT, like SS3 just comes out of nowhere. You like you're watching the movies and then you see Goku with SS3 against Baby. It's like, what the fuck happened here?
You Super Saiyan 3 was in the Buu saga, and if you were watching Kai and then GT, you have no idea where that came from.
And like the confusion didn't stop there, because I remember, you know, when my brother first saw Videl, because he saw the second Broly movie before me, he was like, oh, did you see Videl? You know about this new character Videl? I'm like, no. Like, you know, like Gohan, that's Gohan's kid, Goten. Like, he had a kid with her. I'm like, wait, what's going on? So when I watched the movie for the first time, like, this is why this movie's so, I guess you could say, nostalgic. You know, because Gohan, I thought Videl and Gohan had Goten, when in reality they had Pan later on. But I realized that later on. But it was just so hard, you know. I was like thinking, like, what's going on? Like, why? Who is this kid and why is he here? Like, and I know you hate that movie. But that's just something that I grew up with, not having the Buu arc.
I hate that movie, but you're right. There is, if that's your first love, yeah, or one of the first ones.
And then there's one other story I got, you know, from my childhood when GT was getting to like its zenith, like its high point. I remember me and my brother were watching GT, right? And this is back in the day. We're watching it, and Goku, this is right before he got SS4. So he's fighting against Baby, and literally episode 34, the last episode right before he transforms, we saw the preview and everything, we lose cable. Right, because we didn't have, like, there was bouts, you know, in my life where we didn't have cable, and this was one of those where, you know, by this point, like, for this one, episode 34, we're watching it, and then Viacom comes in and takes the cable, and that really pissed us off. You know what I'm saying?
But couldn't you go online though and watch it there? Because it had to have been online by then.
Like, we could have, but there were episodes on the internet, but they were hard to find. Plus, we really wanted to see it on TV as it aired.
Yeah. But by then, I was already making my own DVDs and shit, bro. Like, I was burning shit to it. Like, I'm just saying that's what I was doing. You could have done that too.
Yeah, we were young, so we didn't have any money for that. But
right. Well, how old were you? 8 or 9?
Yeah, like
right around there.
GT started coming on like 2011, 2012. Like, I was 9 at that point, so yeah.
Okay. No, you would have been younger. Yeah. I just figured you would just go online to look it up, but that makes sense.
And then this is like the other part of the Gen 3 era that I wanted to go over. Like, because by this point there was so much BS on the internet, so much, you know, because by the Gen 2 era, like, really, this is really catapulted. By this point, it was like, you know, crowding, like getting so much BS. Around this point is where I started noticing people believing the BS. Like, people actually, like, believing in, you know, stuff that didn't actually happen, or putting out false info. Like, people would actually believe, you know the BS stereotype that, oh, Piccolo's Gohan's real dad, stuff like that, or like people believing in the Team 4-Star stuff, like over the stuff that actually happened in the series. Stuff like that would piss me off.
I know, and I hate it. I hate it so much, bro. I hate it because it's I do not hate abridged, but I hate that when fans say that's the only real dub, or and that pisses off the dub actors too. That's the only dub I like, or when they say like, oh, that's the best dub, and it's not a dub though. It is a parody. It's a parody. That's what it is. Not a dub. But whatever, man. That's how it is.
So like like at this point, because the Bardock special was there, like Trunk special. You saw all this stuff except for the Boo arc, and you got all these questions like who is this character? Who is this character? Who's Goku's real mom? Is Celipus Goku's real mom? Like Fasha? Is Andre really your dad? No, but like all these questions that like we'd be asking and then finding out on the internet or on TV later on through the movies or GT. So much stuff like that kind of gets thrown into the mud because people, just I guess embrace BS. And then so after this is where the shift from Gen 3 to Gen 4 starts to happen because Battle of Gods came out.